The sound of her hand connecting with the elderly woman's cheek echoed through the marble hallway like a gunshot. In that split second, Celeste Rivera destroyed the most important relationship of her life without even knowing it. She thought she was putting a disrespectful servant in her place. Instead, she had just slapped the mother of the billionaire she was about to marry. The woman who held the final say over whether her son would ever walk down the aisle at all. Welcome to my channel, where I share real stories with unexpected twists. If you like what you hear, please hit subscribe and give me a thumbs up. It really means a lot to me. Now, let's begin this story. The black Bentley purrs to a stop in front of the Blackwood estate, its engine falling silent as Celeste Rivera steps onto marble steps that cost more than most people's annual salaries. Her designer heels click against the stone with the confidence of someone who believes she belongs in this world of infinite wealth. After 8 months of carefully orchestrated romance with Harrison Blackwood, she's finally here. Not just visiting, but auditioning for the role she's dreamed of her entire life. Billionaire's wife. The mansion towers before her like a golden fortress, its windows reflecting the afternoon sun and her perfectly chosen outfit. Every detail has been calculated for this moment. The cream-colored dress that whispers elegance without screaming desperation. The jewelry that hints at good taste without suggesting she's trying too hard. Even her smile has been practiced in bathroom mirrors until it projects just the right balance of warmth and sophistication. This isn't just a house visit. This is her coronation. Celeste has spent 28 years clawing her way up from a cramped apartment in Queens to this moment of triumph. Every relationship, every job, every carefully chosen friend has been a stepping stone toward this golden doorway. She's dated lawyers and doctors, but Harrison represents something beyond mere success. He represents transformation into the kind of woman who never has to worry about money again, who commands respect simply by walking into a room. Her phone buzzes with another Instagram notification celebrating their recent engagement, but she ignores it. Social media validation feels insignificant compared to what awaits her inside these walls. Today is about proving she deserves to be here permanently, about demonstrating that she's worthy of joining one of America's most powerful families. 3 miles away, in the penthouse suite of Manhattan's most exclusive hotel, Harrison Blackwood adjusts his laptop screen and checks the security feed from his family estate. Multiple camera angles show every corner of the mansion, every hallway where his fiancée might reveal her true character. He told Celeste he had an urgent board meeting, but the only business he's conducting today is the most important evaluation of his life. 8 months of dating taught him that people perform differently when they think they're being watched versus when they believe they're invisible. His mother's suggestion to test Celeste this way seemed extreme at first, but the Blackwood family fortune requires protection from those who might love money more than the people who earned it. The woman he marries will have access to billions. She needs to prove she deserves it. The grand foyer welcomes Celeste with crystal chandeliers, scattering rainbow light across hand-painted wallpaper that tells the story of 4 generations of accumulated wealth. Persian rugs, cushioned floors, so polished they reflect her carefully applied makeup in stunning clarity. This should be her moment of absolute triumph. the victory lap she's been rehearsing in her mind for months. But something feels wrong in the silence. Where are the servants rushing to greet her? Where's the champagne? Reception she expected. Instead, there's only the sound of her own breathing and something else. Water dripping somewhere deep in the house, rhythmic and slightly ominous. On his hotel room screens, Harrison watches her confidence waver through multiple camera angles. He can see the moment she straightens her spine, summoning the armor of entitlement she's perfected over 8 months of dating a billionaire. The first test has begun, and she doesn't even know it yet. From around the corner comes a different sound, rhythmic scrubbing, methodical and persistent. The noise grates against Celeste's nerves like fingernails on silk. This is supposed to be her grand entrance moment, not some mundane soundtrack of domestic labor interrupting her triumph. She follows the sound with growing irritation, her heels announcing her approach on marble that gleams like mirrors. What she finds stops her cold. An elderly woman kneels on pristine floors, methodically cleaning surfaces that already shine like jewelry. The woman wears a faded gray uniform, her silver hair pulled back in a simple bun. Weathered hands move with practiced precision, scrubbing corners that already appear spotless. She doesn't look up when Celeste's designer presence fills the doorway. 3 miles away, Harrison leans forward, watching his mother perform the role they rehearsed perfectly. The dismissal ignites something primal in Celeste's chest. Rage born from years of feeling overlooked by people who should recognize her worth. Here she is, engaged to one of America's youngest oil billionaires, wearing an engagement ring that cost more than most people's cars. And this servant can't be bothered to acknowledge her properly. Each passing second without recognition feels like personal insult, a challenge to the authority she believes her engagement ring grants her. The woman continues her methodical cleaning, seemingly oblivious to the expensive shoes clicking impatiently nearby. Through his surveillance system, Harrison watches Celeste's face transform from expectation to irritation, to something uglier. His mother warned him this might happen, but seeing it unfold in real time makes his stomach clench with disappointment. The silence stretches until it becomes unbearable, pressing against Celeste's temples like atmospheric pressure before a storm. Finally, the woman looks up, and Celeste expects the proper reaction. Wide eyes, stammered apologies, scrambling to her feet in recognition of obvious superiority. Instead, the woman's gaze is calm, almost serene, with an unsettling steadiness that makes Celeste feel exposed rather than elevated. "Good afternoon, miss," the woman says in a voice weathered by years but surprisingly clear. The greeting is polite enough, but there's something about its delivery that grates against Celeste's expectations. No rushing to please, no obvious fear of authority, no immediate recognition of the hierarchy that should govern their interaction. Just simple, straightforward acknowledgement that feels insufficient for the moment she's anticipated for months. Harrison's grip tightens on his phone as he watches the first cracks appear in his fiancée's facade. Sometimes the most ordinary days hide extraordinary challenges ahead. "Welcome to the home," the woman adds, returning her attention to the already spotless floor as if the conversation is complete. The casual dismissal sends electric fury through Celeste's designer-clad frame. This is not how servants behave when greeting their future mistress. Where's the deference? Where's the proper respect for someone who will soon command this household? The woman's continued cleaning feels like deliberate provocation, a calculated refusal to provide the validation Celeste desperately needs. Every second of continued scrubbing chips away at her authority. Every breath the woman takes in calm contentment feels like mockery. In his hotel suite, Harrison watches his mother's performance with a mixture of admiration and growing dread. She's doing exactly what they planned, but he's beginning to fear what they might discover about the woman he thought he loved. "Excuse me," Celeste's voice cuts through the air like a blade dipped in honey, each syllable designed to command immediate attention. The woman pauses but doesn't look up again, which only fuels the growing fire in Celeste's chest. "I said, excuse me!" The words explode with more venom than intended, but the woman's continued calm only intensifies her fury. When the servant finally raises her head, there's no fear in those dark eyes, no rushing to apologize or explain. Instead, there's only that same unsettling steadiness that makes Celeste feel examined rather than respected. Through multiple camera angles, Harrison watches his fiancée's mask slip further, revealing something he's never seen before. His mother's eyes find the nearest security camera for just a moment, and he knows she's thinking the same thing. This woman is failing their test spectacularly. "I'm Celeste Rivera, Harrison's fiancée." She lets the words hang in the air like a banner proclaiming her elevated status, waiting for the reaction she's practiced receiving. Wide eyes of recognition, stammered congratulations, an immediate shift from casual indifference to proper reverence. But the woman simply nods, as if filing away routine information rather than receiving news of tremendous importance. "I see," is all she says. And somehow those two words feel more insulting than outright disrespect would have been. There's no awe, no acknowledgement, no recognition of what it means to be engaged to the master of this house. Just bland acceptance that offers no validation for the victory Celeste thought she'd achieved. On his screens, Harrison sees his mother's slight smile. She's getting exactly the reaction they expected, and it's breaking his heart. The rage building in Celeste's chest has roots that go deeper than this moment. Growing up in Queens, she learned early that respect had to be demanded, not requested. Her mother cleaned houses just like this one, coming home each night with stories of wealthy families who looked through her like she was invisible. Celeste swore she'd never be invisible again, never allow anyone to dismiss her the way her mother was dismissed. But here, in the house that represents everything she's fought to achieve, she's being treated like just another visitor, like someone whose presence doesn't matter. The familiar sting of being overlooked burns in her throat like acid. "Did I say you could continue working while I'm speaking to you?" The question explodes from her lips with force that surprises even her, but the woman's response is maddeningly calm. She sets down her mop with deliberate care and rises slowly to her feet, movements unhurried despite the obvious anger directed at her. When she straightens to full height, Celeste realizes the woman isn't as frail as she first appeared. There's strength in her shoulders, steel in her spine, but none of it translates into the proper respect due someone of Celeste's newly elevated position. "You will address me as ma'am, and you will stop what you're doing when I'm present. Do you understand me?" Harrison's hands shake as he watches through multiple camera feeds, seeing his fiancée reveal herself as someone he doesn't recognize. The woman meets her gaze with that same unsettling steadiness, and when she speaks, her voice carries no trace of the fear or apology Celeste expects. "I understand, Miss Rivera." The response is technically correct, but something in the delivery makes Celeste's skin crawl with frustrated rage. There's no submission in the woman's tone, no acknowledgement of the power dynamic that should govern their interaction. Worse, she doesn't use the ma'am that Celeste demanded, maintaining the same casual respect she might show any visitor rather than the deference due the future lady of the house. The continued composure feels like deliberate provocation, a calculated refusal to provide the validation Celeste desperately craves. Through his surveillance system, Harrison watches his mother handle the situation with the dignity he was taught to expect from the women who raised him. Dignity his fiancée is utterly failing to show. Around the mansion, other staff members begin to notice the commotion. A young housekeeper peeks around the corner, her eyes widening at the scene unfolding in the main hallway. The gardener, visible through tall windows, has stopped his work to watch through the glass. Word travels fast in houses like this, especially when someone commits an act so shocking it defies comprehension. The tension becomes unbearable, pressing against Celeste's temples like a vice, tightening with each passing second. This woman's refusal to show proper fear represents every slight she's ever endured, every moment she's felt overlooked by people who should have recognized her worth. The rage crystallizes into singular focus. This servant will acknowledge her authority, will validate her position, will provide the respect she's convinced herself she deserves. The woman stands there with infuriating calm, apparently unmoved by the storm brewing in the marble foyer. Her serene indifference to Celeste's obvious superiority becomes the final straw that breaks her carefully maintained composure. Celeste's childhood memories flood back uninvited. Her mother's tired face after 12-hour days cleaning houses for families who never learned her name. The shame of wearing hand-me-down clothes to school while classmates flaunted designer labels. The burning determination to never, ever be dismissed the way her family was dismissed. But this moment feels different. This isn't about overcoming poverty or proving her worth to skeptical socialites. This is about a servant who refuses to acknowledge what Celeste has become, who treats her elevation to billionaire's fiancé as insignificant as yesterday's newspaper. The woman picks up her mop again, apparently considering their conversation finished. The casual dismissal is the match that ignites 8 months of accumulated pressure, 28 years of fighting to be seen and respected, and a lifetime of promising herself she'd never be invisible again. Without thinking, without considering consequences, Celeste's hand flies through the air with the force of all her frustration. In his hotel room, Harrison's coffee cup crashes to the floor as he watches the woman he planned to marry strike his beloved mother across the face. The slap echoes through the marble foyer like a gunshot, sharp and final and irreversible. Truth has a way of demanding our attention when we least expect it. The sound seems to hang in the air like a curse, reverberating through the mansion's golden halls with increasing intensity rather than fading away. Celeste's palm stings from the impact, but the satisfaction she expected doesn't materialize. Instead, there's only a growing realization that she's crossed a line she can't uncross, opened a door she can't close. The woman's head snaps to the side from the force, but when she slowly turns back to face Celeste, there's no explosion of tears or anger, no dramatic reaction that would make sense of what just happened. Instead, there's only silence. Heavy, loaded, dangerous. Through his screens, Harrison watches his mother absorb the violence with the same grace she's shown throughout her life, and he knows their test has revealed everything they needed to know. The woman touches her cheek gently, almost thoughtfully, as if memorizing the sensation rather than reacting to pain. There's no crying, no cursing, no storming away in righteous indignation. Instead, she simply stands there, absorbing the moment with the same calm she's maintained throughout the entire encounter. When she speaks, her voice is softer than before, but carries undertones that make Celeste's stomach twist with unexpected unease. "I see," she says quietly, and somehow those two words contain more threat than any shouted accusation could carry. The woman doesn't demand apologies or threaten to report the assault. She simply stands there, looking at Celeste with an expression that suggests she's learned something important, something that will have consequences far beyond this moment. In his hotel suite, Harrison closes his laptop with shaking hands, having seen enough to know his engagement is over. "I see exactly who you are, Miss Rivera." The words aren't delivered with anger or hurt. They're spoken with the quiet certainty of someone who has just received confirmation of something they suspected all along. There's something terrifying about the woman's composure, something that makes the air feel thin and dangerous. This isn't how servants are supposed to react to discipline. They're supposed to cry, apologize, beg for forgiveness, or at least show appropriate fear. Instead, this woman looks at Celeste with something that might be pity, the kind of expression usually reserved for people who have just made catastrophic mistakes without realizing it. The calm assessment in her dark eyes makes Celeste feel exposed, vulnerable in ways she can't understand. Around the mansion, staff members emerge from doorways and corridors like witnesses to a car accident. Their faces show a mixture of shock and barely concealed horror. A young maid covers her mouth with both hands, her eyes wide with disbelief. The gardener has abandoned his tools and moved closer to the windows, watching through the glass with the fascination of someone witnessing something unthinkable. They've all heard about what happened, Celeste realizes. Word travels fast in houses like this, especially when someone commits an act so shocking it defies comprehension. Their stares feel like physical weight pressing down on her shoulders, the accumulated judgment of people who just witnessed something unforgivable. The woman picks up her cleaning supplies with the same deliberate care she's shown throughout their encounter, but now there's something different in her movements, a purposefulness that suggests plans being set in motion, decisions being made that will alter the course of everything Celeste thought she knew about her future. She doesn't look at Celeste again as she prepares to leave, but her presence somehow fills the entire foyer with electricity that makes breathing difficult. "Mr. Harrison should be home soon," she says conversationally, as if the assault never happened. The casual tone makes Celeste's skin crawl with growing unease. There's no threat in the words, no promise of retribution, just a simple statement that somehow feels ominous, like storm clouds gathering on a clear day. The woman's continued composure in the face of violence suggests someone accustomed to being underestimated, someone who might be far more dangerous than any servant has the right to be. As the woman walks away, her footsteps silent on marble that Celeste's heels have been announcing all afternoon, a terrible certainty begins settling in the pit of her stomach. Something about the entire encounter feels wrong. Not just morally wrong, but strategically catastrophic. The woman's unnatural calm, her complete lack of appropriate fear, the way she absorbed the violence like she expected it. Celeste's mind races through possibilities, but none provide comfort. She tries shaking off the growing dread, tells herself she's overthinking a simple interaction with household staff, but the feeling clings like smoke, seeping into her lungs and choking her with the bitter taste of mistakes that might have consequences she never considered. The first portrait stops her cold as she wanders deeper into the house. It hangs in the main hallway like a sentinel, an oil painting of an elderly woman whose eyes seem familiar, though Celeste can't place where she's seen them before. The golden nameplate reads simply, "Beloved Matriarch," but the painting radiates authority that makes her stomach clench with unease. The woman's expression holds the same unsettling combination of wisdom and judgment that haunted their encounter in the foyer. More portraits line the walls as she moves through increasingly grand corridors. Family photographs spanning decades, showing generations of wealth accumulated and carefully guarded. In one particularly ornate frame, she finds what appears to be a family photograph from several years ago. A younger version of the cleaning woman stands beside a distinguished man in expensive, traditional attire, their hands resting on the shoulders of a boy whose features have grown into Harrison's face. The woman in the photo wears the same calm expression that made Celeste's skin crawl, but here she's accompanied by jewelry that costs more than luxury cars and fabric that speaks of wealth beyond imagination. The nameplate reads, "The Blackwood Family, Building Legacy Through Love." Celeste's hands tremble as she stares at the image, her mind racing through possibilities she doesn't want to consider. The timeline is wrong. The context makes no sense. Rich families don't have their matriarchs dressed as domestic help, scrubbing floors in faded uniforms. But the resemblance is there, undeniable and terrifying. Her phone buzzes with a delayed text from Harrison. "Sorry, baby. Business running longer than expected. Security system acting up. Been getting weird alerts all afternoon. Make yourself comfortable. Can't wait to hear how your day went." The message hits like a physical blow, each word driving home implications she's trying to deny. Security alerts all afternoon, during the exact time frame of her encounter with a woman who might not be a servant at all. Why would security alerts delay a business meeting? Why does the timing match so perfectly with her arrival? The questions multiply in her mind, each one more disturbing than the last, each one pointing toward a truth she can't face. From upstairs comes the sound of movement, deliberate footsteps that seem to know exactly where they're going. Celeste looks up through the mansion's grand stairwell to see a figure moving across the upper landing. The same woman from the foyer, but completely transformed. Gone is the faded uniform, replaced by elegant clothing that speaks of wealth, wisdom, and power accumulated over decades. She moves with fluid grace through halls that clearly belong to her, pausing at doorways and adjusting photographs with the casual authority of someone who built this empire from nothing. There's no cleaning equipment in her hands now, no subservient posture or apologetic movements. Instead, she carries herself like royalty, surveying her domain. And when her gaze finds Celeste watching from below, the smile that curves her lips holds all the warmth of a winter morning. The transformation is so complete, it takes Celeste's breath away. This isn't a servant who changed clothes. This is someone revealing their true nature after a performance has ended. The woman's posture radiates authority that makes the air thin and dangerous. A door opens somewhere in the mansion, followed by the sound of multiple car doors slamming. Male voices drift through the halls, business conversations punctuated by laughter and the easy intimacy of family. But instead of relief at Harrison's return, Celeste feels only growing dread. The woman upstairs pauses at the landing railing, her head tilted as if listening to something only she can hear. When she looks down at Celeste again, her smile has transformed into something that would make predators nervous. There's satisfaction in that expression, the look of someone whose carefully laid plans are coming to fruition. She's been orchestrating this moment, waiting for the right time to reveal what Celeste has done and who she did it to. The realization hits like ice, water. This isn't coincidence. It's choreographed justice. "Celeste, baby, where are you?" Harrison's voice carries through the halls, warm with homecoming joy that will soon turn to ash when he discovers what happened in his absence. The endearment hits like a funeral bell, marking the end of something precious that Celeste only now realizes she's destroyed. From her position on the landing, the woman raises one finger to her lips in a gesture that might be playful if it weren't so terrifying. The message is clear. The revelation will come when she decides, how she decides. And Celeste's only role now is to wait for judgment to arrive, dressed in expensive suits and family loyalty. Rock bottom becomes the foundation on which we rebuild everything. The footsteps multiply in the foyer as Harrison returns, with what sounds like several family members. Their voices carry the warmth of people who love and protect each other, unaware that they're about to discover the woman who wanted to join their family had instead revealed herself as someone who would strike their beloved mother without provocation. The front door swings open with the weight of judgment entering the house. "Mama, I'm home!" Harrison's voice fills the marble halls like thunder before a storm. "And I brought Uncle Marcus and Aunt Patricia to meet Celeste." His words bounce off crystal chandeliers, each syllable another nail in the coffin of her crumbling future. But it's what comes next that makes Celeste's blood turn to ice. "Thank you for taking care of my fiancée while I was away. I hope she passed your little test." The casual mention of a test sends an electric shock through her nervous system. From the top of the staircase, the woman, Mrs. Elena Blackwood, because that's who she must be, descends with the measured pace of a queen approaching her throne. Harrison appears in the hallway, flanked by two distinguished relatives whose expensive attire and confident bearing mark them as family patriarchs come to witness what should have been a joyful introduction. Instead, they find Celeste frozen in the center of the marble floor, like a deer caught in headlights. Harrison's voice cracks with confusion as he sees his mother in her true attire, no longer disguised as domestic help. The pieces click together in his mind with devastating clarity. The woman he loves just met his mother for the first time, and something has gone catastrophically wrong. "Hello, my son." Mrs. Blackwood's voice carries the weight of disappointment that could crush mountains. She reaches the bottom of the staircase and moves toward her family with fluid grace. "I've been getting acquainted with your fiancé. We had a very enlightening conversation." The pause before enlightening hangs in the air like a blade waiting to fall. Uncle Marcus and Aunt Patricia exchange glances that speak volumes about family dynamics and tests that have been conducted before. They know what this moment means, understand the gravity of whatever assessment has just taken place. "What kind of conversation?" Harrison asks, though his voice suggests he already fears the answer. Mrs. Blackwood approaches her son with the tenderness reserved for delivering devastating news to people you love. "Your fiancée met me while I was cleaning floors, as we planned. She found my greeting insufficient for someone of her newly elevated status." The understatement drips with quiet venom, each word carefully chosen to maximize impact. "What do you mean? Insufficient?" Harrison's voice rises with protective instinct warring against growing horror. Mrs. Blackwood touches her cheek gently, the same spot where Celeste's hand connected with devastating force. She found it so insufficient that she decided physical correction was necessary. "Your fiancé slapped me across the face for the crime of not showing proper deference quickly enough." The words land like bombs in the marble foyer, exploding everything Harrison thought he knew about the woman he planned to marry. The color drains from Harrison's face as if someone opened a valve and let his life force pour onto the marble floor. "She what?" He turns to look at Celeste, and she can see the exact moment when love transforms into something far more dangerous. "You struck my mother." Each word is pronounced with surgical precision, as if he's trying to make sense of syllables that don't belong together in any rational universe. Celeste's mouth opens and closes, but no words come that could possibly explain away what she's done. "I didn't know. I thought she was—" "You thought I was what, Miss Rivera?" Mrs. Blackwood asks with deadly gentleness. "A servant. Someone whose humanity could be dismissed because of the clothes I wore. Someone whose dignity mattered less than your imagined authority." Each question is a scalpel cutting away layers of pretense to expose the rot beneath Celeste's designer facade. "That's not what I meant." Celeste's voice cracks with panic. "You were cleaning. You didn't acknowledge me properly. I was frustrated." Each word makes it worse, revealing more about her character than silence ever could. Harrison's face contorts with pain that goes beyond betrayal. This is the death of dreams, the cremation of futures carefully planned and joyfully anticipated. "You struck my mother because she was cleaning?" Mrs. Blackwood raises one hand, and the gesture silences her son more effectively than any shout could. "Let me explain why this test was necessary. 43 years ago, I was the woman cleaning floors in houses like this. I scrubbed toilets for people who looked through me like I was invisible, who treated my dignity as something they could afford to ignore. Her voice carries pride, tempered by memory of struggle, triumph earned through suffering that shaped her into someone who would never forget where she came from. I worked 16-hour days to feed my family, to build the foundation of what would become this empire. I know what it feels like to be dismissed by people who think uniforms determine worth. When my son told me he wanted to marry someone, after only 8 months, I insisted we test her character. The family members nod in recognition of wisdom earned through experience, understanding why this woman who built an empire from nothing would never tolerate anyone who treats working people as less than human. "I watched you do it," Harrison says quietly, and those 5 words carry more condemnation than any shouted accusation. I was in a hotel room 3 miles away, watching security cameras, hoping to see the woman I love treat my family with kindness and respect. Instead, I watched you assault my mother because she didn't bow quickly enough for your liking. The phone in his hands shows timestamp after timestamp of Celeste's increasing aggression, building to the moment when her hand connected with his mother's face in high-definition clarity that leaves no room for alternative interpretations. "The most heartbreaking part," Mrs. Blackwood adds with surgical precision, "is that this was never about me. This was about discovering whether you could love our family or just our money. Whether you could see past uniforms and job titles to recognize human dignity." She moves closer to Celeste, who shrinks back as if proximity to such moral authority might burn her designer skin. "You failed spectacularly. Not only did you fail to show basic human decency, you chose violence against someone you perceived as powerless. That tells me everything I need to know about what kind of mother you would be to my grandchildren." Celeste's world collapses inward like a building with structural failure. "Please, I can change. I can learn." But the words sound hollow. Even to her own ears, Aunt Patricia speaks for the first time, her voice carrying quiet authority. "Child, you can't learn to have a soul you weren't born with. You can't study to develop empathy that should have been there all along. The judgment is final, delivered with the kind of certainty that comes from watching someone reveal their true nature under pressure." 8 months, Harrison whispers, more to himself than anyone else. 8 months I thought I knew you. 8 months I defended you to friends who said you seemed too interested in money. His voice rises with each repetition, building to a crescendo of betrayal and self-recrimination. But love can't overcome this. Love can't fix someone who would strike an elderly woman for not showing sufficient deference. Mrs. Blackwood stands surrounded by her family, protected by love that recognizes real threat when it reveals itself through violence against the innocent. "I think it's time for you to leave," she says with quiet finality. "The engagement is over. Your chance to be part of this family died the moment your hand touched my face." As Celeste stumbles toward the door that brought her such hope just hours ago, Mrs. Blackwood's voice follows her with final judgment. "I've spent my life building something worthy of my son's inheritance. You've spent years building nothing but beautiful surfaces over empty foundations. The test wasn't whether you could fool us. It was whether you'd reveal exactly who you are when you thought no one important was watching." The door closes behind her with finality that seals more than architectural space. It seals her fate as someone who had everything within reach and threw it away for the momentary satisfaction of putting someone in their place. The Bentley's engine starts with a purr that now sounds like a funeral dirge, carrying Celeste away from golden gates that will never open for her again. Through the rearview mirror, she watches the mansion shrink into the distance, not just a house, but a symbol of everything she could have had if only she possessed the character to deserve it. Inside the mansion, the Blackwood family gathers around their matriarch with the protective instinct of people who understand that true wealth lies not in what they can afford to buy, but in what they choose to become. 43 years I waited to build something worthy of protecting, Mrs. Blackwood tells her son. I couldn't let someone who would strike an elderly woman become the mother of your children or the guardian of our legacy. Harrison deletes the last photo from his phone. 8 months of memories poisoned by one moment of revealed character. I thought I knew her. Now you know her completely, his mother replies. And knowing someone completely is the greatest gift you can receive before making the biggest mistake of your life. This story reminds us that every interaction with another human being is a test of character, that we either pass through kindness or fail through cruelty. True power lies not in our ability to demand respect through intimidation, but in our capacity to offer dignity to everyone we meet, regardless of their circumstances. In a world that often mistakes volume for authority and aggression for strength, let Mrs. Blackwood's quiet dignity remind us that real influence comes from lifting others up rather than tearing them down. The most powerful position any of us can hold is one that allows us to protect rather than harm, to honor the humanity in everyone we encounter. If this story moved you or opened your eyes to the dignity that exists in every human being, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us share more stories that explore the depths of human character and the choices that define our true worth. Because in the end, we are all tested by how we treat those we believe have no power to help or harm us. And those tests reveal exactly who we are when we think no one important is watching.